Welcome back to Crime Documentary Files. You're joining us live for an episode where we promise to bring you three of the most unbelievable crime cases. Our first case is about a strange event that took place in the apartment of a beautiful TV host in Guangzhou, the capital of Guangdong Province, China. At 7 a.m. on December 30th, 1998, a housemaid named Xiao Qi was at the home of her employer on Longkou Road, Tianhe District, Guangzhou, going about her daily duties. As usual, she opened the bedroom door and walked into the living room to start her day. Suddenly, an overpowering, strange smell hit her. Xiao Qi paused and sniffed the air. It seemed like gas. She rushed to the kitchen to check the gas valve, but what she found in the living room was far more shocking. Her employer was lying motionless on the floor. At that moment, Xiao Qi had a terrible feeling. She called her employer's name and yelled several times, but there was no response. So she hurried to the kitchen and shut off the gas valve. Afterward, Xiao Qi called the homeowner's sister. About 15 minutes later, the sister arrived at the scene. She discovered her beloved sister had already passed away. She immediately contacted the police. Upon receiving the report, the police from Tianhe District, Guangzhou, quickly arrived at the scene. Some of the officers were surprised because they felt the female victim looked familiar. One of the officers asked the victim's sister, "Is she the host from Guangdong Television?" The victim's sister then confirmed her identity as Chen Shuran, a prominent TV host with a striking appearance on Guangdong Television. Chen Shuran was well known and had a strong connection with many viewers who loved the station. Despite evidence suggesting this was an accident, the sudden and unusual nature of her death left her sister devastated and eager to uncover the true cause. According to the testimony from the housemaid Xiao Qi, she found her employer lying on the living room floor with the entire room filled with the smell of gas. The police initially speculated that Chen Shuran might have turned on the gas valve herself. However, upon conducting a preliminary examination of the body, they discovered clear bruising on Chen Shuran's neck. Additionally, in one corner of the living room, the police found a fruit knife with traces of blood on it. Considering the bruises, the gas smell, and the bloody fruit knife, the police theorized that this could be a homicide in which the perpetrator killed the victim and staged the scene to look like an accident. Consequently, the Criminal Investigation Unit of the Tianhe District Police Department took over the case. Around 9 a.m. that same day, members of the Major Crimes Unit arrived at the scene and immediately began a more detailed investigation. The crime scene was located on the 31st floor of Tianchang Tower at 92 Longkou Road. The owners of these luxury apartments were wealthy families, celebrities, and public figures. Chen Shuran's residence was apartment F. The entire apartment covered more than 1,600 square feet. Although the interior design was relatively simple, the police at the crime scene found no signs of a struggle or disturbance. In Chen Shuran's bedroom, there were 2 expensive cameras, a Breguet watch worth over $100,000, and several valuable pieces of jewelry. None of these items had been taken. According to Chen Shuran's sister, a safe in the bedroom containing more than $10,000 in cash and a bank savings book valued at nearly $3 million was also untouched. As a result, the police speculated that robbery was unlikely to be the motive for the murder. However, during the subsequent investigation, the cleaning staff at Tianchang Tower discovered an empty wallet in a corner of the second-floor hallway. Chen Shuran's sister later confirmed that the wallet belonged to her sister and was the only item missing from the crime scene. What the wallet contained remains unclear to both the police and the victim's family. However, based on Chen Shuran's sister's description, the wallet was a high-end designer item. At that time, it was valued at more than 10,000 yuan, a significant amount in 1998. Its worth exceeded the amount of cash that might have been inside. It seemed strange that the perpetrator discarded the wallet instead of taking it. However, The investigating officers considered two possibilities from this incident. The first possibility was that the killer entered Chen Shuran's apartment, intending to steal something, but wasn't a professional thief, which is why they failed to recognize the wallet as a valuable designer item. The second possibility was that the item the perpetrator wanted was inside the wallet. Unfortunately, the victim might have discovered the thief's intentions, leading the killer to murder her to cover up the crime. Afterward, the perpetrator took what they needed and discarded the wallet. To this day, no one knows for sure what was inside that wallet. At this point, the forensic examiner began the autopsy on the victim. Although the police had found a blood-stained fruit knife at the crime scene, there were no visible knife wounds on the body. Instead, the examiner found two distinct strangulation marks on the victim's neck. While these bruises weren't caused by a rope or wire, the depth of the wounds led the examiner to conclude that the killer used significant force, suggesting that the perpetrator might be a man. Additionally, the police collected several footprints matching those of a male. Following the trail of footprints, they initially traced them from a bathroom adjacent to the bedroom, leading into the living room. Although the living room had many overlapping footprints, the final footprints disappeared near the main door of the apartment. As a result, the Tianhe police suspected that the perpetrator first appeared in the bathroom next to the bedroom. However, based on the testimony of the housemaid, Xiao Qi, only she and Chen Shuran were in the apartment on the day of the incident. Moreover, all the doors and windows in the apartment were securely locked that night. Therefore, it seemed impossible for anyone to sneak into the apartment without making noise. Even stranger, the man appeared to be barefoot in both the bathroom and the living room. While the investigation team was baffled by this, they discovered that the bathroom's door and window were both open. Investigators also found several male footprints of a similar size on an air conditioner mounted outside the bathroom window. From this, the police speculated that the perpetrator had entered the victim's room from outside the bathroom window. But what puzzled everyone was that Chen Shuran's apartment was on the 31st floor of the high-rise building. How could the perpetrator have reached such a high window? In the follow-up investigation, the police discovered that the Tianchang building had a total of 32 floors, with Chen Shuran's apartment, Unit F, located on the 31st floor. This meant that if the perpetrator had entered the crime scene, they could have only climbed down from the rooftop on the 32nd floor. About 3 minutes later, the police arrived at the rooftop and found some traces and footprints. The rooftop of Tianchang is made of white cement, and aside from some dust and footprints, the investigators didn't find any obvious clues. However, following the footprints, the police eventually discovered a black fire hose in the east corner of the rooftop. The hose was approximately 20 to 23 feet long. Investigators then made a bold assumption: the perpetrator may have used this black fire hose to climb down from the rooftop to the 31st floor, step onto the air conditioner mounted on the exterior wall, and then enter Chen Shuran's apartment. Clearly, performing such a feat would require a great deal of skill and courage. However, the police's next discovery further supported this theory. In the fire escape on the 31st floor, they found that the fire hose inside had been deliberately cut. After comparing the cut marks, they determined that the black fire hose on the rooftop was the section that had been removed from the 31st floor. Based on this finding, the police deduced two key points. First, the perpetrator was extremely daring and may have undergone professional climbing training. Second, the perpetrator knew how to access the fire hose on the 31st floor, indicating that they had prepared for the crime in advance and were familiar with the equipment in the Tianchang building. With these assumptions in mind, the police decided to investigate further at the Property Management Office of Tianchang to gain more insight. Meanwhile, the autopsy report was also released. The time of death for Chen Shuran was determined to be between the night of the 29th and 3 a.m. on the 30th. The cause of death was strangulation and asphyxiation. Due to the victim's high profile, within less than 2 hours of the report being filed, news of Chen Shuran's death had spread throughout the streets and avenues of Guangzhou. To find the perpetrator as quickly as possible, an investigative team began looking into the victim's social connections. Chen Shuran was born on August 21, 1968, in Zhaoqing, Guangzhou. She was one of 3 sisters. Her father was a teacher, and her mother worked as a civil servant in a city office in Guangzhou. Growing up in such a family environment, Chen Shuran was known to be a well-behaved and academically gifted child. In 1984, at just 16 years old, she graduated from Guangzhou Commercial Tourism Secondary School and was hired as a receptionist at a seaside hotel in Guangzhou. Although her starting point wasn't high, this marked the beginning of her career's rise. One day, a film crew from Guangdong Television visited the hotel where Chen Shuran was working to shoot a program. As it turned out, a female editor from the station took notice of Chen Shuran, who was working at the reception desk. Encouraged by the editor, she bravely signed up for the audition to become a host for Guangdong Television. Despite it being her first time in front of the camera, Chen Shuran's continuous efforts and her natural charm quickly made her a beautiful host for the Social and Education Department of Guangdong Television. From there, her career soared. After just a few years as a TV host, she swiftly became the top figure in the entertainment industry at Guangdong Television. She also married a male colleague named Wu Jihang, and together they became the perfect on-screen couple, admired by many. However, as Chen Shuran's career soared, cracks began to appear in her marriage to Wu Jihang. In May 1995, 3 years after their wedding, they secretly finalized their divorce. According to Chen Shuran's sister, after the divorce, she dedicated all her energy to her work. Shortly afterward, Chen Shuran became the youngest editor at Guangdong Television. However, like many women, Chen Shuran couldn't avoid feeling disillusioned by love. As a result, she decided to move into the Tianchang building and hired a housemaid to help with daily tasks and provide companionship. According to the investigation conducted by the Guangzhou police, Chen Shuran led a very private life. It wasn't until after the incident that her friends and colleagues realized how far her wealth exceeded that of the average person. Her luxurious apartment, which spanned 1,600 square feet in the Tianchang building, was valued at over 1 million yuan at the time. Additionally, Chen Shuran owned 7 other properties and 3 luxury cars. It was initially estimated that her total assets exceeded 30 million yuan, equivalent to over 4.2 million US dollars. In the 1990s, such wealth placed her among the ranks of the truly affluent. As a result, the source of Chen Shuran's vast fortune became a topic of public speculation. Rumors circulated that, before and after her divorce, she had been involved in several romantic relationships. She was said to have had relationships with multiple men, including 2 wealthy individuals from Hong Kong and Australia, as well as a few businessmen from other regions. While the Guangzhou police conducted a secret investigation, rumors about the cause of Chen Shuran's death began spreading in the media. Yet, according to the findings of the Guangzhou police, Chen Shuran had no known conflicts or disputes with anyone prior to the incident. Based on their earlier discovery of the fire hose, investigators maintained their belief that the person who broke into Chen Shuran's apartment was someone very familiar with the Tianchang building. At the crime scene, although the Guangzhou police collected some fingerprints and blood samples, the forensic technology of the time was quite limited. Investigators were unable to use databases for comparison and could only narrow down the suspect pool to a certain range, then manually collect fingerprints and blood samples for individual comparison. Based on the footprints and traces left at the crime scene, the Guangzhou police speculated that the man who committed the crime acted alone. He was estimated to be between 5 feet 5 inches and 5 feet 9 inches tall, aged between 20 and 40, and very familiar with the Tianchang building. The investigators visited the building's management office for further inquiries. At the time, Tianchang was located in a prime area of Guangzhou, with strict security measures and surveillance cameras installed in the hallways. Almost anyone entering or leaving the area would be captured on camera. However, when the police arrived, they discovered that the security camera at Building 1, where Chen Shuran's apartment was located, had been broken for nearly 6 months. This was a major disappointment to the investigators, but it also confirmed that the suspect had chosen this specific location, knowing the camera was not functioning. This indicated that the perpetrator had detailed knowledge of Tianchang's surveillance system and might have been an insider. Following this lead, the Guangzhou police conducted a thorough investigation and interviewed all the staff at the Tianchang building, while also collecting their fingerprints and blood samples. By the afternoon of the 6th day after the crime, the police's biochemical department released a report. The report revealed that a security guard named Ding Guoli had fingerprints and DNA that matched those found at the crime scene. Ding Guoli, 25 years old, was originally from Hubei province. He had worked as a security guard at Tianchang for 2 years. However, 2 months prior, he voluntarily left his job after committing a serious violation. According to records from the Tianhe District Criminal Investigation Team on January 4, 1999, 5 days after the incident, Ding Guoli was brought back to the police station to provide fingerprints and blood samples and was later released. However, the police were unable to locate or contact him after this. Based on typical criminal behavior analysis, after providing a blood sample, Ding Guoli likely returned to his hometown in Hubei to avoid drawing attention. As a result, the Special Investigation Team from the Tianhe District Police Department dispatched 4 officers to Hubei to investigate. To avoid suspicion, the 4 officers disguised themselves as family planning officials. Upon arriving in Hubei on the morning of January 7, 1999, they went straight to Ding Guoli's hometown. 2 officers stayed at the village entrance, while the other 2 entered the village and made their way to Ding Guoli's home. After asking around, they found Ding Guoli's father, Jang Yutai, at a local farmhouse. Rather than revealing their true identities right away, the officers posed as family planning investigators and asked questions about his children. Jang Yutai answered frankly, saying he had 2 sons. His eldest son, Ding Guofeng, had worked in Zhangxia Town, Dongguan City, Guangdong Province, where many young men from their village went to earn money. His eldest son later returned to Guangzhou. As for his younger son, Ding Guoli, he had been working in Tianhe District, Guangzhou, but had not contacted the family in over 6 months. Jang Yutai wasn't sure if his son would return home for the Lunar New Year with his girlfriend. At this point, the officers realized something suspicious. They asked further questions about Ding Guoli's girlfriend, but unfortunately, Jang Yutai didn't know her exact address. He only knew that Ding Guoli had worked in the Huangpu district of Guangzhou. Following this cross-provincial investigation, the Guangzhou police gathered 3 key pieces of information. First, Ding Guoli had not returned to his hometown in Hubei, meaning he was likely hiding in familiar places. Second, he had a girlfriend in Guangzhou, so if he remained in the city, he might be hiding in one of 2 places, either his brother's home or his girlfriend's place. Third, many young men from Ding Guoli's village were working in Zhangxia Town, Dongguan, Guangdong Province. Based on these social connections, it was highly likely that Ding Guoli had fled to Zhangxia Town to seek help from his fellow Hubei natives. After the 4 officers returned to Guangzhou, the investigation team split into 2 groups to track down Ding Guoli. The first group remained in Guangzhou to continue gathering specific information about Ding Guoli's brother and girlfriend. The second group went to Zhangxia Town, Dongguan, to investigate and verify information regarding other people from Hubei who might be connected to Ding Guoli. In 1999, Zhangxia Town was located in southeastern Dongguan, Guangdong, and had become an important industrial hub. There were hundreds of factories, and many young people from other provinces came to work in Guangdong through connections with fellow villagers. Due to the large number of factories in Zhangxia Town, the police had no choice but to investigate each one individually. They approached factory managers and asked them to gather young workers from Hubei. The investigators then questioned each person. Using these traditional investigation methods, the Guangzhou police continued their search for 3 days, visiting dozens of factories. While they didn't find any direct traces of Ding Guoli, they did receive a critical lead from one worker. A young worker, also from Hubei, said that he knew Ding Guoli and was aware of his girlfriend. Her name was Qi Yan, and she lived in the Huangpu district of Guangzhou, where she worked at a large shopping mall. With this valuable information, the second team withdrew from Dongguan and started their investigation in the shopping mall in Huangpu district. On the afternoon of January 11, 1999, Guangzhou police found a woman named Qi Yan, who was likely Ding Guoli's girlfriend. Through covert surveillance, the officers discovered that she was renting an apartment in the Sabao Industrial Village, located in Huangpu District. To avoid raising suspicion, the police continued their secret surveillance, waiting for Ding Guoli to appear. At the same time, another group of officers began devising a plan to arrest Ding Guoli. Based on the investigation team's analysis, Ding Guoli would likely be closely monitoring the progress of the investigation while in hiding. Therefore, during the covert operation to arrest him, the Guangzhou police sent several officers each day to the area around the Tianchang building. These officers would ask passers-by about individuals with different photos, creating the impression that Ding Guoli had been ruled out as a suspect. On January 12, 1999, through surveillance of Qian, the investigators were able to locate one of Ding Guoli's hometown friends, Xiao Liu. After some persuasion, the Guangzhou police convinced Xiao Liu to cooperate in capturing the suspect. On the afternoon of January 13, 1999, Xiao Liu, a close friend of Ding Guoli, visited Qian's residence and informed her, "You don't need to worry anymore. Ding Guoli is safe, and the police are now investigating others." As a result, the following day, on a cold and rainy winter morning, around 10 a.m., a young man carrying a suitcase appeared at the entrance of the village. Although he was holding an umbrella to shield himself from the rain and trying to hide his face, the police had already identified him as Ding Guoli. The officers surrounded him and promptly handcuffed him. According to the officers at the time, Ding Guoli was so terrified that he wet his pants. Back at the interrogation room in the police station, Ding Guoli confessed to all of his crimes. Going back to December 1998, Ding Guoli had worked as a security guard at the Tianchang building for 2 years before being fired. He had been unemployed for nearly 2 months and was preparing to return to his hometown for the new year. However, due to his job loss, Ding Guoli didn't have enough money to buy gifts for his family. He desperately needed money to get through the holiday. At around 6 p.m. on December 29, 1998, Ding Guoli took a bus to the Longkou-Shi area. Since he had worked at the Tianchang building nearby, he thought he would revisit the area. While eating dinner that day, he had no specific plan in mind, just a vague impulse to break into someone's home. After finishing his meal, Ding Guoli wandered around the night market for about an hour, and around 11 p.m., he stopped at a roadside stall and bought a small knife. After careful consideration, Ding Guoli decided to return to the Tianchang building and break into an apartment to steal. According to his confession, he chose Tianchang mainly because he was familiar with the building's layout and security measures. Additionally, Ding Guoli knew that the apartment owners at Tianchang were wealthy. Around midnight that night, Ding Guoli quietly made his way to the parking garage beneath the Tianchang building. Since there were no surveillance cameras in the fire escape stairwell, he used that route to enter Building 1. He then climbed to the 32nd floor, where he checked the stability of the iron railing on the rooftop. From there, he looked down to see if there was an entry point he could use to break in. He noticed that most apartments still had lights on, except for Unit F on the 31st floor, which was dark. He also saw that a window in that unit was open. Ding Guoli assumed no one was home and thought he could enter to steal some valuables. However, it was still early, so Ding Guoli waited on the rooftop. Since he was familiar with the security guard's patrol schedule, when the guard came to check the area, Ding Guoli hid in a corner of the rooftop. Around 2 a.m., when the Tianchang building was completely quiet, Ding Guoli began his plan. He carefully made his way to the fire valve on the 31st floor and used the knife he had purchased earlier to cut a fire hose. He then returned to the rooftop, tied the hose to the iron railing, and removed his shoes. Holding the hose, he slowly lowered himself down the building's exterior. When he reached the 31st floor, he found a small ledge near the window and stood on it, balancing next to an air conditioner. Ding Guoli then crawled into the bathroom of Unit F. He recalled, "At first, I thought everything would go smoothly, without making any noise. However, after taking just 2 steps inside the dark bathroom, Ding Guoli noticed light seeping through the gap under the door from the other room. At that moment, he was terrified, but it was too late to escape through the window. In a panic, Ding Guoli quickly hid behind the bathroom door, still holding the knife he had used earlier. At this point, Chen Shuran opened the bathroom door and walked in. As she sat down on the toilet, she didn't notice Ding Guoli. However, the moment she stood up, she suddenly saw a hand appear from behind the bathroom door. Startled and preparing to scream, Chen Shuran was immediately silenced as Ding Guoli lunged forward, covering her mouth with his hand. He threatened her with the small knife and said, "I'm just here to steal. Don't make any noise. I'll leave." However, the more Chen Shuran tried to escape his grasp, the more panicked Ding Guoli became, tightening his grip around her neck. Within minutes, Chen Shuran had become completely unresponsive. Shocked by the unexpected turn of events, Ding Guoli was terrified. About a minute later, he regained his composure and quietly left the bathroom. Seeing the bedroom light only intensified his fear, so he quickly turned it off. Ding Guoli then wanted to flee, but because the apartment was so large and it was dark, he mistakenly walked into the wrong room. Eventually, by the faint light of the moon, he found his way to the front door. After opening it, he rushed back up to the rooftop to put his shoes on. At that moment, he noticed the fire hose and threw it into the east corner of the rooftop. While doing so, he realized he had injured his hand. Ding Guoli later recounted that he was overwhelmed with fear at the time and wanted to go back to retrieve the knife and clean the blood off it. He even remembered that he had left the door to Unit F open. So, Ding Guoli ran back into the apartment once again. As he approached the bedroom, he saw something horrifying. Chen Shuran was standing in the corner between the living room and the bedroom. Before she could scream, Ding Guoli rushed toward her, intending to explain himself. But Chen, who had a strong personality, still had enough strength to try to escape the apartment. In a panic, unsure of what else to do, Ding Guoli grabbed her neck once again, this time squeezing tightly until she collapsed, motionless. Ding Guoli also stated that as he was preparing to leave the apartment, he touched Chen Shuran's nose and noticed she was still breathing. Then, almost by accident, he saw a wallet on the coffee table in the living room. So he grabbed the wallet and put it in his pocket. As he was about to leave, Ding Guoli entered the wrong room again, this time stumbling into the kitchen. He told the investigators, "At that moment, I was so tense and not thinking clearly. I just instinctively reached out and turned the gas valve." After leaving through the front door, Ding Guoli ran back up to the rooftop to put his shoes on, and then, using a different stairwell, he returned to the basement of the Tianchang building. However, he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he quietly hid in a fire escape on the second floor. There, he took the wallet out of his pocket and found that it contained only 1,060 yuan, an ID card, and 3 bank cards. Despite successfully taking the money, Ding Guoli felt a wave of regret. So, he tossed the designer wallet, worth over 10,000 yuan, into a corner under the second-floor stairwell. Fearing being discovered by patrolling security guards, Ding Guoli waited until daylight to quietly leave the Tianchang building. Around 8:30 a.m. that same morning, he hid out at his girlfriend's rented apartment in Guangzhou. That afternoon, news of Chen Shuran's murder aired on television. Upon hearing the news, Ding Guoli was shocked. He hadn't expected that Chen Shuran had died. What surprised him even more was that the media speculated her death might have been the result of a sexual assault, possibly involving a lover. Feeling confident, Ding Guoli believed the Guangdong police wouldn't trace the crime back to him. He remained in Guangzhou, keeping an eye on how the police were handling the investigation. But on the 5th day after the crime, Ding Guoli was caught off guard when the criminal investigators called and requested that he provide his fingerprints and a blood sample. To avoid suspicion, he felt he had no choice but to comply and go to the police station. After leaving the police station, Ding Guoli felt very afraid. So, later that afternoon, he fled to Zhangxia town in Dongguan to find a temporary job. During his time in Dongguan, Ding Guoli didn't contact anyone, including his hometown friends. It wasn't until the afternoon of January 13th that his girlfriend, Qi Yan, called him and said, "The police have cleared you as a suspect." At this point, Ding Guoli believed the danger had passed, so he returned to Guangzhou and took a walk with his girlfriend through the city streets. However, he didn't realize that Guangzhou police were waiting near Qiyan's apartment to arrest him. After confessing to the entire crime, Ding Guoli expressed deep remorse, saying, "I knew she was wealthy, but I didn't know she was that famous. I never intended to kill anyone." On March 12, 1999, the Guangzhou Intermediate People's Court heard the case. During the trial, Ding Guoli was sentenced to death for robbery and murder, along with the permanent deprivation of his political rights. In court, Ding Guoli argued that the sentence was too harsh and immediately appealed the decision. However, on April 9, 1999, the Guangdong Provincial Higher People's Court rejected Ding Guoli's appeal and upheld the original sentence. While the case came to a legal conclusion, due to Chen Shuran's fame and the strange circumstances surrounding the crime, many questions remained unanswered. The first being, when Ding Guoli broke into Chen Shuran's apartment that night, was his true motive really just theft? According to Ding Guoli's testimony, his initial intent was to break into the apartment to steal valuables. So why, after Chen Shuran lost consciousness, didn't he search for anything of value in the room? Additionally, Ding Guoli claimed that he returned to Chen Shuran's room a second time, only to retrieve the knife he had dropped and to wash the blood off his arm, after which he closed the door. If this was simply a robbery, this behavior seems highly illogical. Furthermore, before fleeing the scene, Ding Guoli opened the gas valve, clearly attempting to stage the incident as a gas poisoning accident. The biggest unresolved question remains: was Ding Guoli really acting alone during the crime? This question has led some to cast doubt on the role of the housemaid, Xiao Qi. She was also in the apartment the night of the crime, though she slept in a different room with the door closed. Why didn't she wake up during the struggle between Chen Shuran and Ding Guoli? Was this a mere coincidence, or was there something more intentional at play? These are just a few lingering uncertainties in this case. However, we must acknowledge that the Chinese police did an excellent job in their investigation. Particularly in 1998, when advanced forensic tools were not widely available, their achievement is quite remarkable. What are your thoughts on the sentence handed down to the perpetrator and the unresolved questions in this case? Our second case is a double murder that took place in Hong Kong, China. At 9 a.m. on October 24, 2005, an air conditioning repairman named Wang, following the instructions of his supervisor, went to the technical room on the 33rd floor of the Revenue Tower in Hong Kong to carry out some work. Before 2022, this was still a general office building housing several government agencies. Recently, an issue had occurred in the machine room of the Environmental Protection Department, so they hired an external contractor to handle the repairs. As soon as Wang entered the technical room, he noticed a strong, foul odor. However, after checking the area, he didn't find anything unusual. At around 12:30 p.m., the repairman climbed to the top of the 10-foot-tall, about 3 meters, technical room to proceed with the repair. Like other repairmen, Wang was equipped with a headlamp and a handheld flashlight, as the space inside was very dark. When he scanned the area with his flashlight, he noticed a large, human-shaped dark object with one end covered by a red plastic bag. At first, Wang thought it might be an overweight person who had accidentally been electrocuted, so he frantically called his supervisor, Chen Zhenhui. He stammered, "Mr. Chen, there's a fat person who got electrocuted on the roof of the building, on the 33rd floor. You need to come see this." Shortly after, Mr. Chen and another worker arrived at the scene. The three of them climbed the stairs to inspect the area and felt that it wasn't a real person, but rather a doll. One of them even remarked, "The hair looks very real." They all suspected that someone had placed it there as a prank, but Wang insisted that what he saw was a real body because the smell was unbearable when he first arrived. Then, one of Wang's colleagues grabbed an umbrella and pressed it against the doll's stomach. It was only then that they realized it was indeed a real corpse. Terrified, the three men immediately informed the building's security and called the police. The police and forensic staff quickly arrived at the scene. The director of the Environmental Protection Department, Guangzhou, also arrived along with officials to assess the situation. After examining the scene, the police found the body of a woman on top of the air conditioning unit. Due to the warm weather at the time, combined with the fact that the air conditioning system only operated from Monday to Friday and was shut off on weekends, the temperature difference between the inside and outside of the room was about 18 degrees Fahrenheit. This led to uneven decomposition of the body, making it impossible to recognize the victim's facial features. Determining the exact time of death was also extremely difficult. The body had a red plastic bag placed over the head, tied tightly around the neck, with the hands bound behind the back. The victim was dressed in a white crew neck t-shirt and black pants. She was wearing a pair of pearl earrings, and on her left ear, she had an additional gold earring. On her left wrist, she wore a Rolex watch and a butterfly-shaped bracelet. At the scene, there was also a pair of black Chanel high heels. Based on the victim's attire, it's clear that this was not an ordinary person. She appeared to be quite wealthy. By approximately 5 p.m. that same day, the victim's body was transferred to the forensic lab for examination. The victim was about 5 feet 1 inch in height, weighed around 97 pounds, was approximately 40 years old, and had long black hair partially dyed red. There were multiple scratch marks on her neck and chest, and a stab wound on her right breast, which had been inflicted from behind. Although the wound penetrated deeply into the chest, the forensic examiner concluded that it was not the cause of death. The primary cause of death was determined to be asphyxiation. Additionally, traces of anesthesia were found in the victim's system, indicating that she had been drugged and rendered unconscious before her death. The forensic team also discovered that while the victim's clothes were intact, the skin on her body, including the lower parts, had been cleaned with a disinfectant. This prevented the collection of fingerprints and other biological evidence from the perpetrator, making it impossible to confirm whether the victim had been assaulted. Although the crime scene had been meticulously cleaned and no fingerprints were found, forensic investigators did discover bloodstains on the insulation of the air conditioning unit and on the door handle. The case was later transferred to Hong Kong's Major Crimes Unit for investigation. There were several suspicious elements in this case. First, the woman's body was hidden inside an air conditioning unit 10 feet off the ground. Because of this, it would have been difficult for a single person to place the body there. Therefore, the police suspect that multiple individuals were involved in the crime. The second point of suspicion is, why did the perpetrator hide the body in a place where people work every day rather than in a remote, deserted area? Could it be that the killer was waiting for the right moment to move the body and dispose of it? Finally, the police noted that the victim was still adorned with expensive jewelry, suggesting that this was not a robbery murder. So, what was the killer's motive? To find the answers to these questions, we need to identify the victim. On the same day, major media outlets in Hong Kong were constantly reporting on the case. The Thai Deputy Consul General in Hong Kong, Vichai Varasirikul, happened to read the news and noticed that the description of the victim closely matched that of Charitar Kamal Noranath, a Chinese woman born in Thailand, also known by her Chinese name, Xie Liping. She had been reported missing on October 13th. The Thai Deputy Consul General contacted the Major Crimes Unit and immediately notified Charitar's boyfriend to identify the body. The victim's identity was then preliminarily confirmed. On October 25th, Charitar's cousin, Si Laquan, flew from Bangkok to Cheklapkok International Airport, Hong Kong, bringing DNA samples from her family members. That same night, Charitar's sister, Zi Lidai, flew in from Las Vegas to assist with the investigation. After comparing the DNA, authorities finally confirmed that the female body found in the revenue tower was indeed Charitar, a Thai jewelry businesswoman who had been missing for 2 weeks. Charitar was born in Thailand and was 40 years old. Her parents were Chinese immigrants from Zhejiang and Guangdong. Her father had once operated a gemstone mining business in Thailand, which made the family well known in the jewelry industry there. In recent years, Charitar had achieved great success in the Madagascar diamond trade and was regarded as the jewelry queen of Thailand. Cheritar and her younger sister, Zili Dai, were held to high expectations from a young age and received a top-quality education. After studying abroad and earning a bachelor's degree in the United States, Cheritar returned to Bangkok to assist her father in the family business. She was fluent in English, Thai, and Chinese, and had a basic understanding of Cantonese. It could be said that Cheritar was a wealthy and elegant woman who had everything she desired. However, her love life was an exception. In 1988, at the age of 23, Cheritar married a man 5 years her senior. Initially, their relationship was strong. However, over the past 15 years, despite multiple pregnancies, Cheritar experienced several miscarriages, which eventually strained their relationship. In 2003, they amicably divorced, and her ex-husband decided to continue working with her in managing the family business and running a jewelry store in Bangkok. Not long after, Cheritar's father passed away in a car accident. Since her younger sister, Zili Dai, had married and moved to the U.S. and rarely returned home, the responsibility of running the family business fell to Cheritar, who was 38 at the time. She was deeply dedicated to her work, traveling across Southeast Asia to expand the business. At this point, the police began to focus on the victim's family history, business activities, and personal relationships as possible clues related to her death. Soon, they found a useful lead. Before she was murdered, Cheritar had been dating a 28-year-old man named Wade John Mueller, a photographer and entertainment industry HR consultant. It was reported that Mueller frequently traveled to Hong Kong for talent recruitment and later worked in Thailand. On September 12, 2005, Hong Kong Disneyland had its grand opening. Coincidentally, Cheritar was a huge fan of Disneyland, particularly of Mickey Mouse. She had visited all the Disneyland parks worldwide and had planned to attend the opening of Hong Kong Disneyland. However, since her boyfriend had work in Hong Kong on October 10th, she chose to skip the opening day so she could spend time with him. On October 10th, Cheritar and her boyfriend arrived in Hong Kong and planned to stay for 5 days. According to their schedule, they were set to visit Disneyland on October 13th and return to Thailand on October 14th. During this time, besides helping her boyfriend gather information, Cheritar was also taking the opportunity to explore business prospects for opening a jewelry store in Hong Kong. However, on October 11th, Cheritar went to a restaurant at Revenue Tower to inquire about opening a store. At that time, her boyfriend was out taking photos. Mueller called her and asked if she could stop by the television service office on the 40th floor of Revenue Tower to pick up a book. Cheritar agreed, but upon arriving at the building, she realized it was a public holiday in Hong Kong, and all the staff at the Revenue Tower were off work. Thus, Cheritar could only plan to return the next day. On the afternoon of October 12th, she called her boyfriend, who was still out taking photos, and said, "I'm going shopping in Tsim Sha Tsui, and afterward, I'll go to Revenue Tower to pick up the book for you." However, after that, they lost contact. That evening, Cheritar did not return to the hotel, which was highly unusual. By the morning of October 13th, she still had not returned, and her phone was turned off. Her sister in the U.S. became extremely worried when she found out and called Cheritar's ex-husband, asking him to go to Hong Kong to help search for her sister. Cheritar's current boyfriend, Mueller, was also concerned. He went to Revenue Tower to look for her but found no trace of her. Therefore, he sought help from the Thai consulate in Hong Kong and reported her missing to the police. Subsequently, the investigative team checked immigration records and confirmed that Cheritar had not left Hong Kong. They issued a missing person alert to local police units, but so far, no progress has been made. By October 16th, Cheritar's ex-husband arrived in Hong Kong to assist with the search. However, after 2 days without any leads, he returned to Thailand. It wasn't until October 24th that Cheritar's body was discovered. According to the police, based on statistics from past cases involving the murder of women, about 30% to 40% of these crimes are committed by a spouse or boyfriend. Therefore, the prime suspect at that time was Mueller. Investigators analyzed the situation, noting that Mueller was 10 years younger than Cheritar, and there was a significant financial disparity between them. However, upon further investigation, Mueller had an alibi. On the day in question, he had been out filming and only returned to the hotel later that evening. His colleagues were able to corroborate this, confirming that he didn't have enough time to commit the crime. Furthermore, it was confirmed that Cheritar had indeed gone to Revenue Tower on the day of her disappearance. Although she likely was in a camera blind spot, meaning no footage captured her entering the building, surveillance footage from a nearby subway station showed her in the vicinity on the day she went missing. When Cheritar left the hotel, she was carrying a black backpack containing her passport, 2 credit cards, and some cash. However, when her body was found, the backpack was missing. Later, the police discovered that in the early morning hours of October 14th, someone attempted to use Cheritar's credit card at an ATM, trying to withdraw 20,000 Hong Kong dollars, approximately $2,500 US. However, the card was swallowed by the machine after 3 incorrect PIN entries. Unfortunately, there was no available surveillance footage from that ATM. At this point, the police turned their attention to the crime scene. Revenue Tower. This is a highly important government building with stringent security measures. Only staff members are allowed inside, requiring a password to access employee offices, and visitors must sign in at the reception desk. This made unauthorized entry from outside more difficult. Earlier this month, the technical room was still locked, and only maintenance staff from an external company were allowed access. Based on multiple clues, the police leaned toward the possibility that Cheritar had been robbed and assaulted by someone inside the building. The reasoning behind this theory is that all areas of the Revenue Tower, from the lobby to the freight elevators, were equipped with surveillance cameras, except for Elevator 13, which was reserved for staff. Although this elevator was intended for employees, visitors could also use it. If one took Elevator 13 to the 33rd floor, the technical room was just a few feet away. The police speculated that the perpetrator might have overpowered Cheritar in Elevator 13 and then taken her to the technical room on the 33rd floor. The suspect was likely familiar with the environment and knew the identity of the visitor. The perpetrator could have been a repair worker or a cleaning staff member who worked in the building. Based on the usage of Cheritar's credit card afterward, the police theorized that the perpetrator may have forced her to provide her bank card PIN, which explains why they took her backpack but left behind her valuable jewelry. After stealing the money and assaulting her, the perpetrator may have intentionally left the jewelry behind to obscure their true motive and mislead the investigators. This possibility could not be ruled out entirely. In the course of their investigation, the police reviewed the records of more than 30 people, but found no critical evidence. However, they did discover that one of the individuals under investigation was an air conditioning technician named Su Jintang. Cheritar's credit card had been used at an ATM near Su Jintang's home. The police searched Su Jintang's residence, but found no suspicious evidence. On January 23, 2006, Cheritar's sister, Xie Lidai, and her boyfriend offered a reward of 700,000 Hong Kong dollars, approximately 90,000 US dollars, in hopes of obtaining information related to the case. However, despite the large reward, the case has made no further progress. Notably, at that time, Cheritar's boyfriend was involved in filming a suspense thriller. The plot revolved around a bizarre case occurring in a government building, which was eerily similar to what Cheritar had actually experienced. This made the entire film crew anxious and unsettled. Many members left the production, and filming had to be halted. For the next 3 years, the case remained unsolved. It wasn't until 2008, when another woman named Chu Xiaoyan was murdered, that the true perpetrator in Cheritar's case began to surface. Chu Xiaoyan worked as a ground service staff member, and at around 5 a.m. on May 15, 2008, she sent a message to her boyfriend, Xu Zhen, saying that she was going to help a friend and would be gone for a few days. To request time off from work, she asked her boyfriend to inform her company. Although Xu Zhen also worked at the airport, he was in the cargo department and not in the same division as his girlfriend. He found the situation suspicious and called her, but while the call connected, no one answered. Qiu Xiaoyan, a resident of Jingshan village, usually finished work around midnight. She would then take a bus from the airport for about an hour and a half, getting off at a bus stop near the Tai Po police headquarters. From there, she would walk through the Taihuo market, cross the Jinhe Bridge, and finally reach her home in Jingshan village. This route was quite deserted and lonely late at night. In the early morning hours of May 15th, Chu Xiaoyan did not return home, nor did she show up for work the next day. When her colleagues called her family, they learned she had gone missing. Her family searched for her everywhere but received no news. One afternoon, Chu Xiaoyan's father received a text message from her saying, "There's no need to worry. I'll be back home in 3 or 4 days." Strangely, she also told her family, "I need money to help a friend. Can you transfer some money to my bank account?" Suspicious of the request, her father immediately called back, but her phone was turned off. Earlier, Shujin had told Chu Xiaoyan's family that he had also received a message asking for time off on her behalf. This led to the suspicion that Chu Xiaoyan might have been kidnapped. Chu Xiaoyan's father rushed to the police station to report her missing, but since she had not been missing for 24 hours yet, the police only recorded the information. The next day, the case was transferred to the Missing Persons Investigation Team. On May 17th, Chu Xiaoyan's mother and Xu Zhen went to the bank to check her account. They discovered that, in the early hours of May 15th, someone had withdrawn 400 Hong Kong dollars and 19,600 Hong Kong dollars. And on May 16th, another withdrawal of 200,000 Hong Kong dollars was made from Chu Xiaoyan's account. Seeing these transactions gave her family a glimmer of hope, as the withdrawals were made at a bank near Taihuo Market, where Chu Xiaoyan's ex-boyfriend Zhu Yongqiang lived. Chu Xiaoyan had previously dated Zhu Yongqiang for 4 years. They were each other's first love. However, due to personality differences, they broke up after graduating. Zhu Yongqiang never stopped thinking about Chu Xiaoyan, which led to mental instability. Only after receiving psychological treatment did he start to recover. Soon after, he bought a truck and began working in cargo transport. Chu Xiaoyan's family began to suspect that Zhu Yongqiang might be involved in her disappearance. As a result, Chu Xiaoyan's mother went to the police station for the second time to report the current situation. The recently formed Major Crimes Unit then took over the case. Around this time, Xu Zhen received a message from Chu Xiaoyan's phone, which read, "The ransom is from 1 to 500,000 Hong Kong dollars, you can choose." This time, the perpetrator directly mentioned a ransom. Under police guidance, Xu Zhen pretended to negotiate with the sender, and they eventually settled on a ransom of 100,000 Hong Kong dollars, with the kidnapper threatening to cancel the deal if the amount wasn't met. Based on the location data provided by Chu Xiaoyan's mobile carrier, the ransom messages were sent from Taipo, Kuntong, and Yaomate, all locations along Zhu Yongqiang's cargo delivery route. On the night of May 21st, police officers set up an ambush, stopped Zhu Yongqiang's truck, and detained him. However, Zhu Yongqiang, visibly frightened, insisted, "I don't know anything." The police took him back to the station for questioning. Despite the pressure, Zhu Yongqiang continued to assert that he had no involvement in the case and knew nothing about Chu Xiaoyan's disappearance. The police did not find Chu Xiaoyan's SIM card on him. Therefore, they asked Xu Zhen to send another message to his girlfriend's phone, pretending to negotiate further about the ransom exchange. Surprisingly, the other party responded to the message at noon on the 22nd. Meanwhile, Zhu Yongqiang was still at the police station. At this point, the investigation team decided to use a strategy. Xu Zhen would arrange a meeting with the kidnapper to discuss the time, place, and method for the ransom exchange. At 8 p.m. on the 22nd, Xu Zhen placed the ransom money in a white bag and left it on a bus seat at Taipo Center, heading toward Repulse Bay, Hong Kong. The entire process was monitored by the police. On the bus, they noticed a man repeatedly sending text messages. By tracking the mobile signal provided by the service provider, they confirmed this man was the criminal. To ensure the safety of the hostage, the police decided not to take immediate action. After the man collected the ransom, he took the bus back to his apartment. At exactly 9:50 p.m., the police followed him and then forced their way into the apartment, quickly detaining 4 individuals inside. They found Chu Xiaoyan's SIM card on one of the 4 suspects. In the bedroom, They also found the marked ransom money totaling 10 million Hong Kong dollars, approximately 1.2 million US dollars. With this clear evidence, the 4 individuals were taken to the police station for further questioning. By around 5 a.m., the man carrying the SIM card confessed that he had kidnapped and killed Qiu Xiaoyan. The other 3 were not involved in the crime. The man's name was Su Jintang, and he had 5 siblings. His parents were in the second-hand goods business, and he had dropped out of school early. Afterward, Su Jintang worked in the air conditioning installation and maintenance industry. Su Jintang had no prior criminal record, but he had a dark personality and a strong addiction to gambling. He once racked up hundreds of thousands of Hong Kong dollars in high-interest debt in Macau, which he eventually paid off with help from family and friends. Additionally, Su Jintang had a taste for luxury and indulgence. To fund a trip to Taiwan, he borrowed 70,000 Hong Kong dollars from a finance company. Upon his return, he faced monthly interest payments of 7,000 Hong Kong dollars, and soon he found himself in debt again. Under pressure from the finance company, Su Jintang began considering robbery as a way to quickly make money. 10 days before the kidnapping and murder of Qiu Xiaoyan, Su Jintang had already chosen a location to dispose of the body. The site was a canal, selected because it was remote and seldom visited, with low water levels, making it difficult for a body to drift away. This indicated that he had planned the murder and the disposal of evidence well in advance. On the morning of May 15th, Su Jintang, armed with a knife, randomly targeted a fashionably dressed woman, Qiu Xiaoyan, as she was walking alone near a shopping center in Taihuo Village. He noticed she was carrying an LV bag, and after withdrawing 400 Hong Kong dollars from an ATM at the shopping center, Qiu Xiaoyan walked alone toward Jingshan Village. Su Jintang followed her and suddenly attacked her as she passed through a park. Su Jintang grabbed Qiu Xiaoyan by the neck with one hand and held a knife in the other, forcing her into some bushes under a bridge. He pushed Qiu Xiaoyan to the ground and told her, "If you give me the PIN to your bank card, I'll let you go." Terrified, Qiu Xiaoyan complied with his demand. However, after obtaining the PIN, Su Jintang showed no hesitation in strangling her to death and then dumped her body into the canal. Afterward, he went to an ATM and withdrew 19,600 Hong Kong dollars from Qiu Xiaoyan's card. Then, he returned home to grab a bottle of bleach and went back to the riverbank, where he dragged the body into the canal and poured bleach over it, trying to destroy the remaining skin tissue. Because Qiu Xiaoyan had scratched his hands during the struggle, Su Jintang used the bleach to clean the victim's hands. By the time he finished, it was nearly morning, and he waited until the skateboarders and people exercising nearby had left before he walked away. Su Jintang used the stolen money to treat friends, eat out, and splurge at the shopping mall. The 20,000 Hong Kong dollars was quickly spent, while none of it went toward paying off his debt to the finance company. As a result, the finance company continued to demand repayment. Meanwhile, since Qiu Xiaoyan's body had not yet been discovered, Su Jintang staged a kidnapping to extort her family. Following his directions, the police successfully located Qiu Xiaoyan's body, her cell phone, game console, and employee ID card. The evidence chain in this case was complete, and the case was successfully solved. However, after Su Jintang's arrest, the police recalled an unsolved case from 3 years earlier. Cheritar's missing bank card had also been used at an ATM in a shopping center in Taihuo Village, but the card was swallowed after multiple incorrect PIN attempts. At that time, Su Jintang lived near Revenue Tower and worked there as an air conditioning repairman, with his ID number still on record with the police. It all seemed like an uncanny coincidence. However, during interrogation, Su Jintang adamantly denied killing Cheritar. The police recalled their earlier analysis, which suggested that it would have been difficult for one person to place the victim's body in a room that was 10 feet high. Could Su Jintang have had an accomplice? The police reviewed surveillance footage from that time, carefully examining the videos, and discovered that during the period when the crime occurred, another man had been seen near the Revenue Tower alongside Su Jintang. The police quickly identified the man as Guo Zhihui, a classmate of Su Jintang. After inviting Guo Jihui to the police station, he stated that Su Jintang had taken him to the labor office, but they didn't enter the main building. The police told him, "If you don't confess the truth, you'll be charged with involvement in a murder. However, if you confess honestly, you may be treated as a witness and receive a reduced sentence depending on the circumstances." Faced with this pressure, Guo Jihui immediately confessed. According to his account, Su Jintang had arranged to meet Guo Jihui at the Revenue Tower and led him to the 33rd floor. Before entering the room, Su Jintang instructed Guo Jihui to put on work gloves. Once inside, Guo Jihui saw that the floor was covered with newspapers. When the newspapers were lifted, he was shocked to discover the body of a beautiful woman dressed in luxury clothing. At that point, it appeared she was already dead. Su Jintang then took out a knife and stabbed the body, instructing Guo Jihui to do the same. Fearing the weapon in Su Jintang's hand, Guo Jihui felt he had no choice but to comply. Afterward, the two of them moved the body into a hidden loft and discreetly left the Revenue Tower. Later, Su Jintang treated Guo Jihui to an outing at an entertainment venue to thank him. Guo Jihui was so terrified by his involvement in hiding the body that he didn't report the crime to the police. Following Guo Jihui's confession, the police found Cheritar's cell phone and the murder weapon at Su Jintang's home. These items matched the wounds on the victim's body. Su Jintang defended himself by saying, "At the time, I was only trying to rob her, so I tied her hands, stabbed her once, and placed a red plastic bag over her head. Then I left the room to withdraw money, but when I returned, the woman was already dead." The police then asked Su Jintang, "Why didn't you take the Rolex watch?" He replied, "The watch had a serial number, so I didn't take it because it could easily be traced. As for why I didn't take the expensive jewelry, it's because it was valuable, but hard to sell. If I tried to sell it, I would definitely be suspected." However, the most surprising revelation was that the bank card PIN Cheritar had given him was fake. As a result, Su Jintang didn't gain a single penny from the robbery. On May 26, 2008, the court began the trial for Cheritar's murder. During the proceedings, as the victim's family cried out in anguish, Su Jintang remained indifferent, wearing a cold expression as he stared at the judge. In the first session, the court did not issue a sentence. It wasn't until March 30, 2009, that Su Jintang was found guilty of premeditated murder and sentenced to life in prison. However, the defendant appealed the decision. On March 10, 2010, during the appeal trial for Cheritar's case at the Revenue Tower, the jury reaffirmed the original sentence. After Cheritar's case, her sister Zi Lidai declared, "I will never set foot in this country again. I am truly dissatisfied with the way the police handled the case. They failed to respond actively after receiving the report, missing the critical window to save my sister." Despite the reward reaching 700,000 Hong Kong dollars, the case remained unsolved for 3 years, leading to more innocent deaths. The case also had a severe impact on Cheritar's mother, who suffered from heart disease. Upon hearing the news of her daughter's fate, she fainted and became seriously ill for an extended period. With no one left to manage the family business, they were ultimately forced to sell the company at a low price. Losing Cheritar had truly become a disaster for the family, an uncontrollable downward spiral. This is why I believe they have the right to demand a harsher sentence for the perpetrator of this crime. The next case we're covering took place in Pingxang County, an industrial town south of Qingtai City, Hebei Province, China. This is a beautiful rural area, and Pingxang has long been known as a peaceful and prosperous land, famous for its student bicycle-making industry. Criminal cases have always remained at a low level here. However, a strange and particularly serious murder case once occurred in this town. At around 11 a.m. on April 17, 2015, police vehicles suddenly filled the streets of Weijiazhuang Village, Fengzhou Town, Pingxang County. The crime scene was located at a house on the east side of the village. Although local police had cordoned off the area in front of the house, curious villagers crowded around. The victim, Pan Meihe, was a 40-year-old rural woman from Pingxang County. When her body was discovered, she was lying on her side between the bed and the wardrobe in the master bedroom. 2 blood-soaked ropes were still tightly bound around her wrists, indicating that she had been completely subdued by her attacker before being killed. The house where the crime took place was a typical detached home found in rural northern China. Both the main gate and the surrounding walls were well secured. This should have been a safe haven, yet it became the bloody scene of a murder. During the initial examination of the body, Pingxang police noticed something peculiar about the victim's clothing. If Pan Meihe had been suddenly attacked while she was sleeping, she should have been wearing pajamas. However, the upper part of her body was dressed in a floral-patterned green down jacket, while her lower body wore gray thermal pants, along with floral-patterned gray and white underwear underneath. Although only the outer jacket was torn, Pan Meihe's entire body was covered in wounds, almost rendering her unrecognizable. The forensic examination revealed that Pan Meihe had over 40 sharp force injuries on her head, face, and neck. In addition, her body had more than 20 blunt force injuries. Not far from her body, a bloodied kitchen knife was found discarded at the scene. Upon initial comparison, the forensic team confirmed that the sharp injuries on the victim's head and face were caused by this knife. Besides the murder weapon, police also found a broken gold necklace on the bed at the scene. Additionally, 2 gold earrings were discovered on the ground. Identified by her relatives, all of these pieces of jewelry were confirmed to belong to the victim, Pan Meihe. From these details, it can be inferred that the struggle during the attack was both violent and brutal. Although the investigators were confident about solving the case, they hadn't yet realized that the crime scene, orchestrated by the cunning perpetrator, was far more complicated than they had initially imagined. While Pan Meihe was killed in her master bedroom, Pingxang police also discovered a large bloodstain from friction and dripping on the living room floor. Near this bloodstain, a kettle especially caught their attention. Upon examination, the police found several noticeable dents on the surface of the kettle, as well as traces of blood and hair. After a detailed comparison, the forensic team concluded that the kettle was also used as a weapon by the perpetrator, as the dent patterns matched several of the blunt force injuries on Pan Meihe's body. In addition to the large bloodstain on the floor, investigators also discovered multiple footprints in the room. These footprints started from the master bedroom, passed through the living room, and led to the door of the secondary bedroom. Some of the footprints were bare, while others were in socks. After an initial forensic assessment, investigators confirmed that the bare footprints belonged to the victim, Pan Meihe, while the bloody socked footprints were presumed to be left by the suspect. Furthermore, in both the master bedroom and living room, several bloody shoe prints were found. Most of these prints were faint and unclear, with only 4 being relatively distinct. After thorough analysis, Pingxang police ultimately confirmed that the bloody shoe prints and the bloody socked footprints were left by the same individual. Based on the patterns of these prints, the forensic technicians couldn't estimate the suspect's specific age. However, from the size and shape of the footprints and shoe prints, they were able to provide some basic descriptions of the suspect's physical characteristics. Since the footprints left at the scene were relatively large, Pingxang police speculated that the suspect was a male, standing between 5 feet 5 inches and 5 feet 9 inches tall, with a somewhat slender build. What puzzled the investigators, though, was why the suspect removed his shoes during the crime. If he intended to avoid leaving shoe prints, why did he later put them back on, leaving bloody footprints? Additionally, police discovered a relatively fresh crack below the doorknob of the secondary bedroom. According to the victim's relatives, this crack did not exist before the incident. From this, Pingxang police inferred that the suspect might have kicked the door during the struggle. On the inside of the secondary bedroom door, there was also a bloody handprint near the bottom. This indicated that when the crime occurred, Pan Meihe had tried to prevent the suspect's entry, which resulted in the suspect kicking the door from the outside. However, what the police found strange was why Pan Meihe, after hiding in the secondary bedroom, was ultimately found dead in her master bedroom. Even more bizarre was the fact that the murder weapon used by the suspect was a kitchen knife that belonged to Pan Meihe's own household. Many signs suggested that there might be untold secrets hidden within and around Pan Meihe's secondary bedroom door. As a result, the forensic team focused on examining the secondary bedroom door. Eventually, they uncovered a crucial piece of evidence. On the outside of the door, investigators found a fairly clear thumbprint. From the direction of the thumbprint, police deduced that it may have been left by the suspect while pushing the door. In the eyes of the investigators, this could be the key clue to solving this strange murder case. But would the case really be that simple? By the afternoon of the day the crime occurred, police had essentially completed the crime scene investigation. Pan Meihe's husband, Jin Xiaohui, had hurried back from Shandong province, located more than 60 miles away. Faced with the shocking news, 40-year-old Jin Xiaohui was overwhelmed with shock and grief. According to Jin Xiaohui's testimony, he and his wife, Pan Meihe, had been married for 21 years. The couple used to run a store in Pingxang County before moving back to the village to open a small workshop. 6 months ago, Jin Xiaohui partnered with a fellow villager to open another workshop in Shandong province, where he spent most of his time working. Since their 2 children stayed in boarding school in town, Pan Meihe usually lived alone in the house where the crime occurred. According to the neighbors, Pan Meihe was very cautious in her daily life. Before going to bed at night, she always locked both the inner and outer doors securely. If someone she didn't know well came knocking, she typically wouldn't open the door. Yet, such a careful woman was brutally murdered in her own home. The case stirred up much discussion among the locals. In the villagers' minds, Pan Meihe was a warm, friendly, and helpful neighbor. She had no conflicts or disputes with anyone in the village. Because of this, Pingxang police initially ruled out the possibility that the motive was revenge or personal hatred. Moreover, after thoroughly inspecting the crime scene, the police found no signs that the drawers or cabinets in Pan Meihe's house had been rummaged through. None of her gold or silver jewelry had been taken either. Therefore, investigators concluded that robbery was likely not the suspect's motive. According to her husband, in the early hours of the day the crime occurred between 12:10 a.m. and 12:15 a.m., he called his wife. At that time, Pan Meihe appeared to be fine. From this, Pingxang police confirmed that Pan Meihe must have been attacked after 12:15 a.m. So, how did the brutal killer enter Pan Meihe's home? According to the neighbor who discovered the body, when entering Pan Meihe's house, all the doors were slightly ajar. The house was surrounded by high walls, and investigators found no evidence of anyone climbing over them. All the doors and windows were intact, with no signs of forced entry. Since the crime occurred in the middle of the night, Pingxang police developed 3 theories about how the suspect might have gained access to the crime scene. First, the suspect may have been an acquaintance of the victim, Pan Meihe. On the night of the murder, it's possible that Pan Meihe herself opened the door and let the suspect inside. Second, the suspect could have used a key to unlock the door and sneak into the house. Third, the suspect might have been hiding inside Pan Meihe's home, waiting for the late hours of the night to emerge and carry out a premeditated crime. Although the forensic team did not find any traces of semen in Pan Meihe's body, Pingxang police still speculated that, regardless of how the suspect entered the house, the motive that night was likely sexual assault. Pan Meihe, a beautiful woman living alone, may have been the target. However, when the suspect was unable to achieve their goal, they resorted to murder to cover their tracks. As a result, the suspect could be between 18 and 50 years old. Forensic experts estimated that Pan Meihe's time of death was between 12:30 a.m. and 2 a.m. on April 17th. Based on this time frame, Pingxang police began investigating the village. Weijiazhuang village, where the crime took place, is located only about 1.2 miles from Pingxang County and has nearly 4,000 permanent residents, making it a relatively large village in the area. With the suspect's physical description and the crucial fingerprint found on the secondary bedroom door in Pan Meihe's home, Pingxang police believed that by fingerprinting every resident in the village, the hidden killer would soon be revealed. However, what the investigators hadn't anticipated was that the truth behind the case would far exceed their expectations. During their investigation, Pingxang police discovered a surveillance camera at an intersection near the crime scene. They began carefully reviewing the footage from the camera. Around the time of the murder, investigators noticed that several dump trucks had frequently passed through the intersection. Through their investigation, they later discovered that a local factory was repairing its workshop and had hired over a dozen young and able-bodied drivers from Weizhizhuang village to haul dirt. However, out of concern for the environmental impact on the village committee had set a rule that these dump trucks were only allowed to enter and exit the village between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. Among the dump trucks frequently passing by, Pingxang police eventually identified one person of particular interest. According to surveillance footage, around 12:30 a.m. on the night of the murder, a dump truck suddenly stopped at the intersection. Shortly after, a person got out of the truck, walked around it, then got back in and reversed away from the intersection. The direction the truck drove was the village road leading to Pan Meihe's house. Upon carefully reviewing the surveillance footage, Pingxang police noticed that the suspicious truck did not appear at the intersection again after that point. Since the timing of this incident closely matched the time frame of Pan Meihe's murder, the police identified the truck's driver as a key suspect. Using the license plate number, they quickly determined the driver's true identity. The man's name was Jang Yutai, 42 years old, a local resident of Weizhizhuang village in Pingxang County. Jang Yutai's height and build closely matched the police sketch of the suspect. More importantly, investigators later found that Jang Yutai had multiple interactions with Pan Meihe before her murder. He was considered a well-known figure in the village and familiar with Pan Meihe, as he had been a longtime partner responsible for transporting goods for Pan Meihe and her husband's workshop. However, after Pan Meihe's murder, Jang Yutai rarely appeared in the village. According to Pan Meihe's husband, after the crime, his good friend Jang Yutai never once visited the crime scene or offered any condolences to him or the family. Many villagers found this behavior to be quite unusual. During direct questioning, Pingxang police asked Jang Yutai about his whereabouts on the night of the murder. Jang Yutai explained that the reason he didn't participate in hauling dirt that night was that his truck's tire had unexpectedly gone flat, so he drove home and fixed it himself. Next, investigators asked Jang Yutai why he decided to fix the flat tire late at night instead of waiting until the next morning. Jang Yutai responded by saying he wanted to fix the flat tire so he could quickly get back to hauling dirt. However, according to the surveillance footage from that night, Jang Yutai's truck never reappeared on the road. What further raised the police's suspicions was that Jang Yutai's wife, Liu Mulan, was at her mother's house the night of the murder, and his elderly father, who lived next door, was fast asleep. This meant that Jang Yutai had no reliable alibi. Pingxang police noticed several inconsistencies and gaps in Jang Yutai's statements. As a result, they immediately took Jang Yutai's fingerprints for analysis. The final results excited the investigators. The clear fingerprint collected from the crime scene was a perfect match with Jang Yutai's right thumbprint. However, when confronted by the police, Jang Yutai adamantly denied any involvement. He told investigators that although he frequently visited Pan Meihe's home, he only ever stayed in the living room and the yard. Jang Yutai insisted he had never entered Pan Meihe's master or secondary bedrooms. When asked why his fingerprint was found on the door of Pan Meihe's secondary bedroom, he couldn't provide a clear explanation. Despite Jang Yutai's denial, Pingxang police couldn't easily dismiss the possibility of his involvement. The fingerprint recovered from the scene was highly distinct, indicating that Jang Yutai had been inside Pan Meihe's home and left the print recently. Given his strong denials, the police speculated that there must have been some secret between the two. To gather more evidence, the investigators decided to review all surveillance footage in the village, paying particular attention to Jang Yutai's movements and any changes in his clothing from the night of the murder to the following morning. Pingxang police speculated that if Jang Yutai was involved in the crime, his clothes and shoes would likely have been stained with blood when he left the scene, making it probable that he would change into new clothes the following day. After reviewing surveillance footage, investigators discovered that on the morning of April 17th, the day after the crime, when Jang Yutai arrived at the workshop, his clothes and shoes were noticeably different from what he had been wearing the night of the murder. This critical discovery prompted Pingxang police to conduct a legal search of Jang Yutai's residence. However, the results of the search were unexpected. The police found the clothes Jang Yutai had worn the night of the murder, but after examination, they found no traces of blood or any evidence connecting them to the crime. Although Jang Yutai's behavior before and after the crime seemed highly suspicious due to the lack of concrete evidence, Pingxang police had to temporarily remove Jang Yutai from their list of key suspects. By this point, 3 days had passed since the murder. Nearly all the residents of Weijiazhuang village were hoping that Pingxang police would soon solve the case and find the real culprit. The family of the victim, Pan Meihe, was also overwhelmed with grief and helplessness, especially her husband, Jin Xiaohui. He recalled that just over a month before the crime, his wife had visited him at his workshop outside the city, and they had enjoyed a pleasant conversation, never imagining that their next meeting would be their final goodbye. The more Jin Xiaohui thought about it, the more he blamed himself. He couldn't comprehend who could be so cruel as to harm his kind-hearted wife so brutally. With suspicion toward Jang Yutai temporarily set aside, Pingxang police shifted their focus to investigating the social connections of both Pan Meihe and her husband, Jin Xiaohui. Based on the earlier profile of the suspect, investigators quickly turned their attention to a new person of interest. A 41-year-old local resident of Weijiazhuang village named Wang Tianchang, who soon became a prime suspect in the case. Over 6 months ago, Pan Meihe's husband, Jin Xiaohui, had moved to Shandong province, over 60 miles away, to open a new workshop. As a result, some children's bicycle parts from the workshop in Weijiazhuang village needed to be transported to Shandong province. Wang Tianchang was the worker in charge of accompanying the delivery truck. Because of this, he had close ties with the victim, Pan Meihe. According to neighbors, Wang Tianchang frequently visited Pan Meihe's house. The villagers didn't have a very positive impression of him. Some villagers reported to the police that Wang Tianchang had a habit of drinking heavily and causing trouble when intoxicated, even abusing his wife. Anyone who tried to intervene was typically met with his verbal abuse, except when Pan Meihe showed up. Her presence seemed to calm him down quickly. From this, Pingxang police speculated that there may have been an unusual relationship between Wang Tianchang and Pan Meihe. After the murder, although Wang Tianchang didn't display any outward signs of guilt, and even visited Pan Meihe's home to offer condolences, investigators suspected that this behavior might have been an attempt to divert suspicion from himself. At this point, Pingxang police decided to conduct a direct interrogation of Wang Tianchang. As expected, he appeared nervous and uneasy in front of the investigators. His face gradually turned pale, and his hands trembled slightly during the conversation. When asked about his whereabouts on the night of the murder, Wang Tianchang said he had invited several villagers to his home for drinks. After drinking heavily, he claimed to have rested on the living room sofa before going to bed around midnight. Pingxang police later questioned several villagers who confirmed that Wang Tianchang's account of the drinking session was true. However, when asked whether Wang Tianchang had stayed home all night, the others uniformly said they weren't sure. Additionally, Wang Tianchang's wife told police that she had gone to bed early and didn't know what time her husband came to bed. These details only heightened the police's suspicions about Wang Tianchang. As a result, they conducted a more thorough investigation of his actions before and after the murder. This investigation uncovered 2 major new points of suspicion. First, about 2 hours before the crime occurred, at around 11 p.m. on April 16th, Wang Tianchang had a phone call with Pan Meihe that lasted 12 minutes. This unusual late-night call raised significant suspicion. Moreover, when questioned by Pingxang police, Wang Tianchang appeared evasive. Investigators checked his phone and discovered that he had deleted his entire call history. This led Pingxang police to believe that Wang Tianchang was very likely directly involved in Pan Meihe's death. However, when confronted, Wang Tianchang offered an implausible explanation. He claimed that because he was drunk, he couldn't remember the details of the call, and that he accidentally deleted his call history due to his intoxication. The second major point of suspicion was uncovered through surveillance footage from the village. Investigators found that Wang Tianchang's clothing was different before and after the crime. Specifically, on the morning of April 16th, Wang Tianchang was wearing a brown patterned t-shirt. But on April 17th, after the crime, he had changed into a white shirt, with different pants and shoes as well. In rural northern China during April, it's common for people not to change their clothes frequently, especially shoes, as the weather is still cold. From this, Pingxang police speculated that Wang Tianchang may have washed or hidden the clothes he wore during the crime. Nevertheless, Wang Tianchang continued to offer explanations, claiming that he had changed his outfit because he needed to attend a wedding in a neighboring village on the morning of April 17th. He even led investigators to his yard, pointing to clothes drying on a line, which matched the outfit seen in the surveillance footage. However, in the next phase of the investigation, Pingxang police discovered that Wang Tianchang had not attended the wedding in the neighboring village on April 17th. It became clear that Wang Tianchang had lied to investigators multiple times. However, due to the lack of direct physical evidence, the investigative team had to resort to covert surveillance of the suspect, Wang Tianchang. At this point, although the investigation had not made a breakthrough, the police were unanimous in their belief that both Jang Yutai and Wang Tianchang, the two main suspects, were likely hiding something. To gather concrete evidence, the investigative team decided to expand their inquiry to include other villagers. 21 days had passed since the crime occurred. The police's review of Weijiazhuang villagers was nearing its conclusion. Over the past 3 weeks, investigators had interviewed more than 1,200 men in the village, aged 18 to 50, but aside from Jang Yutai and Wang Tianchang, no other villagers had raised clear suspicions. Facing the enormous pressure and responsibility to solve the case, Pingxang County Police decided to hold an in-depth case analysis meeting. During this meeting, a comment from the chief of police led to the emergence of a third suspect. Zhang Wenjie, the chief of police of Pingxang County at the time, made a suggestion that redirected the investigation team's focus. Zhang Wenjie said, "The investigative team has focused on suspects between the ages of 18 and 50, primarily because we assumed the suspect was a male with the intent to assault Pan Meihe. However, people's physical condition has changed over time. According to relevant research, even men over 60 years old can still commit sexual assault. In fact, compared to younger men or middle-aged men, the desires of some older men might be even stronger." Following this suggestion, the investigative team decided to expand the age range of their inquiry to include men aged 50 to 70. As a result, they quickly identified a highly suspicious elderly man. His name was Jang Yongman, 65 years old, standing 5 feet 8 inches tall with a slender build. In the village, Jang Yongman was of the same generation as Jin Guohua, Jin Xiaohui's father. Although Jang Yongman didn't have much interaction with Pan Meihe, more than a year earlier, when Jin Xiaohui opened his workshop in Weijiazhuang village, Jang Yongman had worked as a security guard there for 6 months. The primary reason Pingxang police identified Jang Yongman as a suspect was due to his poor reputation in the village. During earlier investigations, several villagers reported to the police that despite his advanced age, Jang Yongman was known to be lecherous. He had, on numerous occasions, behaved inappropriately towards several women in the village. However, due to his older age, the investigators did not initially consider him a key suspect in the first round of the inquiry. As the investigation progressed, Pingxang police discovered that 65-year-old Jang Yongman was still in relatively good physical condition. In the past 6 months, a local factory was under construction, and Jang Yongman was working as a night security guard for the building. According to the factory manager, Mr. Liu, Jang Yongman mostly worked the night shift and was the only one guarding the factory's gate at night. This theoretically gave Jang Yongman ample opportunity to commit the crime. However, the factory manager also mentioned that they had conducted several random nighttime inspections at the factory, and each time, Jang Yongman was found to be working diligently, staying in the security room throughout the night with no signs of negligence or leaving his post. Jin Guohua, the father of Jin Xiaohui, also told Pingxang police, "Jang Yongmin and I grew up together, and we've always had a good relationship. His son and my son are friends, and they even did business together in the past. If something in the village was stolen, it might be Jang Yongman, but if you're saying he killed my daughter-in-law, I don't think he's capable of doing that. These comments helped ease some of the police's suspicions. However, from the perspective of the investigators, evaluations from outsiders weren't enough to eliminate suspicion of Jang Yongman's potential involvement in the crime. As a result, the police initiated a covert investigation. Directly across from Jang Yongman's security post was a children's bicycle factory called Hao Haizi. Pingxang police quickly discovered that this factory had a surveillance camera installed at its gate, and this camera captured part of Jang Yongman's security post. Upon reviewing the surveillance footage, police discovered that around 12:12 a.m. on the night of April 16th, a figure appeared in Jang Yongman's security post. Due to the limited angle of the camera, Pingxang police couldn't clearly see the movements of this figure. However, during that time on the night of the crime, Jang Yongman was likely the only person in the security post. Therefore, investigators had reason to suspect that when the figure moved, it could have been Jang Yongman leaving the post. In another surveillance video, around 2:30 a.m. on the night of the crime, a figure on an electric bike was seen traveling from the direction of the crime scene toward Jang Yongman's security post. About 2 minutes later, a figure was seen moving inside Jang Yongman's security post again. Based on the timing and location, Pingxang police suspected that the person on the bike might have been Jang Yongman. Additionally, investigators noticed that on the morning and afternoon of the day the crime occurred, Jang Yongman, who lived on the west side of the village, was seen multiple times on the village road near Pan Meihe's house on the east side of the village. These unusual movements further increased suspicion of Jang Yongman's involvement in the crime. As a result, the investigative team decided to conduct a legal search of Jang Yongman's security post. During the search, investigators found a pair of men's sneakers tucked away in a hidden corner. Although the shoes had clearly been cleaned and appeared normal, investigators discovered that the tread pattern on the soles matched the shoe prints left at the crime scene. Additionally, forensic technicians found traces of human blood on the edge of the sole. After forensic analysis, it was confirmed that the blood belonged to the victim, Pan Meihe. By May 9, 2015, 25 days after the crime had occurred, Pingxang police went to Jang Yongman's house and placed him in handcuffs. The scene of the arrest shocked onlookers. On the surface, there had been no apparent conflict between Jang Yongman and Pan Meihe. He was an elder in the community, so why would Jang Yongman ruthlessly murder a woman young enough to be his daughter-in-law? Could there be more to this story? In the interrogation room, despite being presented with undeniable evidence, Jang Yongman remained stubborn, attempting to deny his crime. After several days of continuous questioning, Jang Yongman's psychological defenses finally broke down. Let's go back 2 years to May 2013. Jin Xiaohui and Pan Meihe had moved from Pingxang County to Weijiazhuang village and opened a workshop producing children's bicycle parts. As the business flourished, the couple also built a new house in the village. At that time, Jang Yongman worked as a security guard for Jin Xiaohui's workshop, so he had a relatively good relationship with the couple. According to Jang Yongman's confession, while Jin Xiaohui and Pan Meihe were building their house, he took the opportunity to steal a copy of their gate key. When asked by police why he had stolen the key, Jang Yongman responded, "I thought Pan Meihe was young and beautiful. She had an attraction to me. I liked her a bit. So I figured if I took the key, I could use it later. When her husband wasn't home, I could take advantage of her." Jang Yongman appeared smug as he told investigators that he had been harboring this dark plan for over 2 years. During that time, since Pan Meihe's husband was often at home, Jang Yongman hadn't found the right opportunity. But by early 2015, when Jin Xiaohui left to expand his business elsewhere, leaving Pan Meihe at home alone, Jang Yongman believed his chance had finally come. According to Jang Yongman's confession, prior to the night of the crime, he had actually snuck into Pan Meihe's yard twice, attempting to carry out his plan. But because Pan Meihe was very cautious and always made sure to lock her windows and doors securely before going to bed, both of Jang Yongman's attempts were unsuccessful. Jang Yongman did not hide the fact that these failed attempts only fueled his growing obsession. Around 1 a.m. on April 17, 2015, Jang Yongman brought along duct tape, gloves, and rope that he had prepared, and rode his electric bike to Pan Meihe's house once again. He first wrapped a scarf around his face, and then used the stolen key to quietly unlock the gate to her home. After passing through the yard and hallway, Jang Yongman found that Pan Meihe's bedroom door was still locked, just like his previous attempts. Undeterred, he went to a bedroom window near the hallway. This time, Jang Yongman noticed that one of the windows in Pan Meihe's master bedroom was slightly open. This discovery excited him greatly. He then removed his shoes, slid the window open, and quietly entered the master bedroom. However, as Jang Yongman tried to approach her silently, Pan Meihe, half awake, sensed something was wrong. In the ensuing struggle, Pan Meihe managed to pull the scarf off Jang Yongman's face. Panicked, she fled the master bedroom and rushed into the living room. Jang Yongman, enraged, grabbed an electric kettle from the corner of the living room and struck Pan Meihe hard on the head. At this point, Pan Meihe collapsed to the floor, injured, and began begging in pain. She pleaded with Jang Yongman, "Please, uncle, stop hitting me, it hurts too much." But this plea only drove Jang Yongman into a frenzy. He later told interrogating officers, "I thought she had recognized me, and if she reported me, I would go to jail. I thought that wasn't acceptable, so I decided I had to finish her off." At that moment, Pan Meihe seized the opportunity to flee from the living room into the secondary bedroom and managed to lock the door behind her. Jang Yongman, unable to force the door open, tried kicking it repeatedly, but the sturdy door resisted his efforts. After calming down, Jang Yongman resorted to pleading from the other side of the door. He told Pan Meihe, "I was wrong. Please don't hold it against me. I'll leave right away, just don't hide anymore. It's all my fault." After saying this, Jang Yongman quietly left the door of the secondary bedroom. A few minutes later, Pan Meihe mistakenly believed that Jang Yongman had indeed left, and in her desperation, she wanted to return to the master bedroom to retrieve her phone and call her husband, Jin Xiaohui. So, she stepped out of the secondary bedroom and tried to head back to the master bedroom. Suddenly, a dark figure lunged from the corner of the living room. It turned out that the cunning old man, Jang Yongman, had not left, but was hiding in the corner, waiting for his prey, Pan Meihe, to appear. The terrified victim didn't expect that at this moment, Jang Yongman was charging at her with a kitchen knife. In a panic, Pan Meihe tried to flee to the master bedroom, but the lustful old man quickly overpowered her with duct tape and rope, restraining her. On the bed in the master bedroom, Jang Yongman attempted to assault Pan Meihe, the woman he had long desired. But Pan Meihe fiercely resisted. Frustrated by his inability to satisfy his desires, Jang Yongman flew into a rage. Enraged, he turned and grabbed the kitchen knife. To ensure Pan Meihe couldn't expose his crime, Jang Yongman, devoid of any humanity, killed her. He naively thought that by killing her, he could permanently hide the truth. When it was revealed that Jang Yongman was the true perpetrator, Jin Xiaohui and his family were utterly shocked. An old man, driven by lust, had plotted and waited for more than 2 years to satisfy his momentary desires. It raised the question, was this a perversion of human nature or the actions of a beast? At the Pingxang County police station, although the investigators finally felt the weight of the case lift from their shoulders, the mysteries surrounding the initial suspects, Jang Yutai and Wang Tianchang, still puzzled them. It wasn't until after the case was solved that Jang Yutai and Wang Tianchang revealed the hidden truths they had kept inside. Jang Yutai admitted to the police that his initial refusal to admit he had touched the secondary bedroom door of Pan Meihe was primarily out of fear of becoming the main focus of the investigation. He didn't realize that this excessive defensiveness only increased the police's suspicion of him. Suspect Wang Tianchang expressed a similar fear. He said that the morning after the crime, he happened to run into Jang Yongman on the road. During their conversation, Jang Yongman casually revealed some information to Wang Tianchang. He mentioned that the person who killed Pan Meihe could have been an old acquaintance of hers. Upon hearing this, Wang Tianchang became anxious. Given his close relationship with Pan Meihe, he feared that he might become the prime suspect. As a result, Wang Tianchang immediately decided to cancel his plans to attend the wedding in the neighboring village and returned home, staying indoors. He also deliberately erased all his call history with Pan Meihe, hoping that this would prevent the police from suspecting him. After fully confessing to his crimes, Jang Yongman expressed deep regret. He told the interrogating officers, "It's all my fault. Because of my selfish desires, I've completely destroyed 2 happy families that were once at peace. My descendants for generations to come may never be able to hold their heads high in the village. It's my fault for making them bear this shame." On May 13, 2015, the People's Procuratorate of Pingxang County officially charged Jang Yongman with intentional homicide. Facing the death penalty, neither Jang Yongman nor his family had any intention of appealing the verdict after it was announced. Dear viewers, a heartbreaking tragedy has unfolded, where the lust and selfishness of an elderly man destroyed the lives of many families. The shocking element of this case lies in the age of the perpetrator and his close relationship with the victim's family. It also serves as a reminder for us to protect ourselves, even in environments that seem the safest. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on our next gripping story. See you in the next video.